Today on Pro Church Daily, we're talking about the average age of lead pastors and why pastors are getting too old.
Well, hey there, and welcome to Pro Church Daily, the show where in 10 minutes or less, you're going to get your daily dose of tips and tactics to help your church share the message of Jesus while we navigate the biggest communication shift in the last 500 years. I'm your host, Alex Mills, and I'm joined, as always, by the boss man, Brady Shearer. Today, we're going to talk about why pastors are so old.
Pastors are old.
They're so old.
And this isn't conjecture on our part as young people. This is just data.
Yeah, this is just fact.
So in 1992, Alex was not born.
Not quite.
I was 1 year old. 1992, the average age of a Protestant lead pastor in 92 was 44 years old. And this number comes directly from Barna, great research on their part. So 92, average age, Protestant lead pastor, 44.
Okay.
Middle age. Yeah. The average age of a Protestant lead pastor in 2016, fast forward just 24 years, 2016 is a full decade older, 54 years old. So right now,
crazy.
It is indeed crazy. And I remember stumbling across this data point for the first time, and I was like, I don't believe it.
Yeah.
And then you start thinking about all the lead pastors that you know, and you're like, I'm thinking I might believe it.
Yeah.
54 years old. So in the span of just a quarter century, the average age of lead pastors grew by a full decade from 44 to 54. And, that's concerning on its own, but it becomes even more concerning when you couple it with the fact that millennials, those aged in 2017, 20 to 37-ish, are the single largest demographic generation that is living in North America and really the world. And so that means that the largest demographic in your church is, not in your church, the largest demographic in your community, in your city, in your nation is those 20 to 37. The average lead pastor is a full 10, 20, maybe even 34 years older than that. And so that means there's a big disconnect. That doesn't mean that someone older shouldn't be leading younger people. It doesn't mean that at all. Of course not. But we're living through this huge communication shift. The way that we communicate has drastically changed. Millennials, digital natives, growing up on technology in ways that generations before them never had. And this means that we've got a huge gap. We've got to bridge that gap.
For sure.
And to talk more data, this might be one of those things where you think, okay, pastors grew a little bit older. Is that something that's always happened? Not necessarily. This is more research from Barna. In 1968, 55% of pastors were under the age of 45.
Wow.
So 6 out of 10 pastors under the age of 45 in 1968. So 68, the majority of pastors are under the age of 45. Fast forward to 2017, just 22% of pastors under the age of 45. And I want to pass this over to you, Alex, because you are an ordained reverend, a pastor that is under the age of 45. As far as I know, Fountain of Youth excluded. What's your perspective on this?
Yeah, I have grown up in a church, and now I get the privilege of working in a church that has always believed, and I'll use myself as an example, but believed in me and believed in people who are less than 54 years of age. And so I consider myself, and according to this data, you can just look at it, I consider myself very privileged to be, a young 24, 20, 25-year-old.
You're definitely an outlier.
Yeah, and to be believed in and supported by our church, it's a privilege of mine. But the data says that most churches don't foster this kind of environment. And so what we like to do in our church is at least, and it doesn't have to be senior leadership, but at least have a voice in leadership from every decade represented. And so from 20s all the way up till as high as you want to go, we like to have at least one voice representing a decade, so 20 to 30, 30 to 40. So that, like I said, it doesn't have to be your senior leadership, but at least have a voice from each one of those age demographics, speaking into where you're going, what you're doing, what your vision is. And I think if more churches would and this isn't about my church, but I think if more churches would adopt that kind of value system, that people in their late teens have something valuable to offer here, people in their 20s have something valuable to say here. If we would kind of foster that environment environment and start to hear from younger people, but not just younger people, older people as well, and kind of, reap from those wells of age and wisdom, that not only would we have more unity in our churches, which is not even what we're talking about, but that would just be a great byproduct of this. But I think you would start to see that average age of pastors kind of climb down from where it is now. I think just naturally that would happen. More people would have an open door to walk into pastoral ministry, whether it's in an associate role like myself or even a senior role. Like we have a great friend of ours who's been a senior pastor since in his mid to late 20s.
Yeah.
And we're starting to see that in our circles. And I think if we could in churches just accept that there are people in every age demographic in our church that have value to add to our vision. If we could accept that and, like I said, foster that culture, then we would start to see this number kind of climb down instead of climb upwards. And I think that'd be a great thing.
If you are one of these lead pastors, in your 50s, if you're in that demographic, which again is the vast majority, that first easy step you can take is simply inviting some millennials within your church. Give them a seat at the table.
Yeah.
You don't need to pass over your preaching responsibilities tomorrow to a 22-year-old.
Right.
You don't need to do that. But millennials want to feel like they have a voice. Millennials at this point are in charge for so many things in their lives. Mortgage, rent, their parents, married, relationships, work, and yet they feel like they go to church and they're not valued. They're not given an ear to listen to. So just give them a seat at the table, really the best first step that you can take. And if you're a millennial, on the flip side, if you're one of the younger people, be willing to step up.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I do not buy into this whole entitlement philosophy of millennials. At least that's not, how I live my life or how any of my friends do, really. But maybe it has some validity. Don't be that type of millennial.
Right.
Choose to curb that trend or curb that perspective that so many have about us. Step up. And what's so great about the time that we're living through, and we're seeing this with church plants, with startup churches, with bivocational pastors, is that you don't even have to wait for someone to give you that time and space if you don't want to.
Yeah.
No one told me I could start Pro Church Tools and build a multi-million-dollar company. I believed in myself. I bet on myself. And now look where we've come.
Yeah.
No one gave me this opportunity. No one was inviting me saying, hey, start up your company and we'll fund it. I'm not saying I'm a self-made man. I don't believe in that. But the internet, communication, the way that it's at now gives us the chance to do things that we never would have been able to do before. So don't neglect the opportunity.
Yeah.
That'll do it for this episode of Pro Church Daily. But before we go, we wanted to tell you about StoryTape, another platform that no one told us we could make, but we did anyway.
We did.
Unlimited stock video downloads. Instead of having to pay a la carte per video, you can download as many clips as you want, unlimited. And what's cool is that every single month we're adding more than 1,000 new clips. So right now, beginning of January-ish, we've got more than 6,000 clips. We added more than 1,000 in the month of December. And in January, we're adding another 1,000. And every month forward, we're going to add another 1,000 because we want you to always have fresh new content you can download and create great videos with. And for Pro Church Daily, our audience here, we're giving you not just the footage in the month of January, but as a free bonus, if you sign up to StoryTape Unlimited in the month of January, we're going to give you 25 After Effects templates to go along with the footage to give you this perfect pairing. Footage plus the templates, a match made in heaven. Go to storytape.com, enter the coupon code DAILY, DAILY.
Nice.
Daily will give you 10% off your subscription forever, and we'll also give you this free bonus, but only in the month of January. Storytape.com is the place to do that. Thanks for watching this episode of Pro Church Daily. We'll see you tomorrow. Hey, thanks for watching today's episode of Pro Church Daily. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to this channel for new videos just like this one every single day.
And if you like this video, it would mean the world to us if you give this video a thumbs up.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.